Well, my name's Councillor Gary Marsh. I'm the chairman of the committee. To my left is my vice chairman, Councillor Hitchcock. To his left is Solomon, our legal officer. And to my right is Eric Owens, who's in charge of all the planning. To his right and in the corner just there are two of our team leaders from the planning department. The members are all in front of us, and in both corners are members from the committees that keep us intact. Now, before we start, I just want to remind members that we are being webcast, and so just can you please keep your comments to just the planning merits of both applications, please? And should you tend to want to stray, I will have to say, if it's not in the document, you can't debate it. Okay? Right. Item 1 is to note substitutes in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 4, substitutes the meetings for committees, etc. I have got Councillor Avery for Councillor Sweatman. Welcome. Item 2 is to receive apologies for absence. I have Councillor Sweatman and Councillor Kenny. Item 3 is to receive declarations of interest from any members in respect of any matter on the agenda. I have none. Thank you. And item 4 is to agree by general affirmation the minutes of the previous meeting we had on the 11th of June. Is that okay? Okay. You weren't present. Definitely were not present. With that adjustment.
And yeah. I know you did receive my apologies because I watched it on YouTube.
Yes, I did. Okay, thank you. Item 5 is to consider any items the chairman agrees to take as urgent business. I have none. And for the reasons what we're here for today is item 6. It's DM 25/2626. That's 42 even. Hurst Road, Hassocks, West Sussex. And this one's yours, Jo.
Thank you, Chairman. So just to draw members' attention to the update sheet, there's been 2 further letters of objection received from the neighbour in respect of an updated 3D image which was saved to the file yesterday. Their comments in relation to the 3D image are set out in the update sheet. Just so members are aware, that 3D image is only for illustrative purposes only. And then there was another one reiterating their previous concerns, which are detailed also in the update sheet. Thank you. So turning to the planning application, permission is sought for the subdivision of the existing residential plot to create 2 residential dwellings alongside the retention of the existing dwelling at 42 Hurst Road. So looking at the location plan, the site is here, outlined in red, shown on my cursor. The property itself here is 42 Hurst Road, which is a large detached 2-storey Edwardian property set back from Hurst Road. The existing property sits slightly above Hurst Road and the land falls away to the rear, going downhill to the north. The rear garden is a substantial size rectangular shape with a wooded area and fields set here to the rear and beyond the boundary. The area is characterised by other large detached dwellings set within spacious plots and set back from the road. There is a pavement running alongside Hurst Road here, shown along the cursor, which leads to Hassocks and Hurstpierpoint. And for the purposes of the application, the site lies within the countryside. So turning to the site plan, so the application seeks permission for the subdivision of the existing residential plot to create 2 new dwellings, shown here and here, alongside the retention of the existing dwelling here at 42 Hurst Road. Permission has previously been granted for a new dwelling alongside the existing property with a pool house to the rear under a 2024 application. This current application before members this afternoon proposes a new dwelling to the rear in place of this pool house. This rear dwelling would be a subterranean part built into the sloping levels and a detached 4-bed dwelling, and it would be accessed with a new driveway access going alongside the west of the site, alongside the shared boundary with 44 Hurst Road. This site plan shows that the rear garden of 42 Hurst Road and for the new house to the side would be set along here, so it'd be 18 metres in depth for the new dwelling here. And like the previous permission that has been granted, the proposal is also seeking the removal of the pebble dash to reveal the existing brickwork at ground level to 42 Hurst Road. So this is just showing the previously approved site plan, which was for one dwelling with a pool house that was subterranean and a plant building here. The pool house itself is in the same location as that being sought of this current scheme and also subterranean in nature. So proposed elevations of the two-storey house, which is to sit alongside number 42 Hurst Road. It would be sited on roughly the same footprint. Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead. The dwelling would be the same design and scale as that previously approved, set to the side of 42 Hurst Road. It would be 2 stories in height, with roof lights to the western elevation here and a lower ground floor, a ground floor window here. And this is part of the roof, in case members are just querying what that is. There is to be a garden room at a below ground level. This application and this new house has slight amendments to what was previously sought through the removal of a glazed link and the proposed addition of a lean-to entrance lobby. This lean-to entrance lobby here is modest and set back, so it would not be prominent in the street scene. This new dwelling, like 42 Hurst Road, is to be set back from a lower height to the existing dwelling, so it would not detract or dominate the original dwelling, nor would it be prominent within the street scene. So just showing some floor plans of the proposed dwelling in relation to number 42. You've got the lower ground floor garden room area, the ground level with the entrance, and then at first floor with roof lights. This would be a 3-bed dwelling. Set to the rear of the site would be the subterranean dwelling. This would be sited on roughly the same footprint as the previously approved pool building. So this design has previously been approved. The design proposes light wells at higher ground level, and it's stepped into the land itself, which slopes away. There would be a plant room building and entrance and stairs accessing to the lower floor and the accommodation of the house. And there would also be a carport attached to this plant room itself. Does that come back on? Yeah,
Yep.
fantastic. Okay, apologies for that. So it's considered, just showing that this is the lower ground floor level and the accommodation within the house itself. So because it's of a subterranean nature, the dwelling would have limited visual impact in the surrounding views due to it being partially obscured by the topography and the green roof proposed. Its bespoke design fits into this rearward location. It would not be prominent nor compromise the character and pattern of the existing development within the vicinity. Overall, it's considered, as set out in the report, that both the dwellings would maintain the character of the countryside in this part of this district and be acceptable in terms of design and impact on the character and appearance of the area. In terms of sustainability, both the dwellings would have a fabric-first approach, delivering high thermal performance, mechanical ventilation with heat recovery, and rainwater harvesting would be incorporated. The site's in a sustainable location within walking and cycling distance of local services and amenities, and it's connected by public transport with regular bus services available from Hurst Road, and Hassocks train station is approximately a kilometre east of the site. So we've just got a couple of sections showing this subterranean house to the rear. This is the plant room and stairs and the carport building. As you can see, the land sort of slopes. How it sets within to the, this is the proposed house fronting onto Hurst Road, and then this is the subterranean building showing how it is set at a significantly lower level itself, just showing sections of this rearward dwelling as well on how it lies within the land, set at a lower level, so it's built in. So this is just for illustrative purposes, so you can sort of see how it sets in. This subterranean house would only have windows facing out to the rear garden of the proposed house. There would be some roof lights, but that was similar to roof lights were proposed for the pool building itself. And this is the dwelling facing onto Hurst Road with the access drive to access the new house itself. So just an existing context elevation, got 42 Hurst Road here, just showing how the land slopes down. This is the neighbour at 44. So the land slopes down quite significantly to the rear garden. And this is the proposed context elevation. So you've got the new front dwelling here, land sloping down, and the subterranean dwelling with the plant room, carport, and access to the building itself. Just got some photographs of the site. This is the front of 42 Hurst Road. This pebble dash would be removed to brickwork. The existing garage to the side of 42 and number 44. So the new dwelling would be sited here, and there'd be a new access coming through. It's a side elevation of 42. This is looking down where the access would be with 44 Hurst Road here on the western boundary. Just some photographs of the site itself. So this is looking from the rear garden back up towards 42 Hurst Road. As you can see, there is a significant difference in the levels. Same again, this is where the subterranean house is. You can see 44 here, 42, and this is looking towards where the driveway is proposed. There is hedging and fencing, and some fencing to be finished off on the site. This is looking towards 44 Hurst Road, looking north towards the countryside as well, and the woodland beyond. This is the rear garden at present. So just turning to other issues. In terms of principle, as members are aware, council are unable to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, so the tilted balance is engaged under para 11D of the NPPF. As set out in the report and the presentation, it is officers' view that there are no adverse impacts which would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits for 2 dwellings in this location, which would contribute to the council's much-needed housing supply and make effective use of the land. There are no policies within the neighbourhood plan which restrict back garden or rearward development, and as set out in the report, the dwellings would maintain the character of the countryside in this part of the district and be acceptable in terms of design and impact on the character and the appearance of the area. In terms of residential amenity, this is set out in detail from para 12.49 of the report. In terms of the proposed second dwelling in the back garden of the existing, and in relation to the siting scale and appearance, this is the same as the pool building approved under the 2024 application. The difference between this and the current proposal is that the approved pool building is now being proposed as a dwelling with a new access drive going down to it. The dwelling has been designed so it would be constructed within the sloping ground, and only the steps leading down to it and the plant room, pergola, carport here would be visible from the existing and proposed dwellings set to the south. The proposal seeks to extend and increase the length of the driveway here, as shown, whilst concerns have been raised in respect to vehicular movements from glare from headlights to the neighbouring property. Due to the sloping nature of the site, mitigation planting and fence on the boundary, that would seek to reduce the impacts. There would be no significant harm. Conditions are placed in Appendix A in respect of hard and soft landscaping and boundary treatment to the western boundary with 44 Hurst Road to include a 2-metre high boundary fence. It's also considered the movement of vehicles for one dwelling would be low, so it would not result in significant harm through noise. Whilst the gardens of 42 Hurst Road and the new dwelling to the front would be reduced compared to dwellings surrounding, the principle of a smaller garden area to 42 Hurst Road has already been accepted in principle through the previous permissions. The reduced gardens would not be visible from public viewpoints and is thereby considered to maintain the character of the countryside. Due to the positioning of the proposed dwellings and subject to detailed conditions, officers consider there will be no significant impact to the amenities of other surrounding occupiers. And officers consider the proposal does not lead to any adverse effects that would significantly or demonstrably outweigh the benefits. So for the reasons set out in the report and within the presentation, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Joe. We do have 4 speakers, 2 in support and 2 against. Can I ask Tony Parr to come to the end chair, please? If you press the right-hand button when you're ready to start, on that screen you will get a 3-minute countdown clock, and when it gets to 30 seconds to go, I will say 30 seconds. I don't want to put you off, but I will have to say 30 seconds, okay? So when you're ready, press the right-hand button of the microphone in front of you. That's it. And when you're ready,
Good afternoon. I'm Tony Parr, owner of 44 Hurst Road, the property immediately to the west of number 42, and I ask you to refuse this application today. Hurst Road is unique. Behind the houses on both sides are long countryside gardens backing onto open fields full of wildlife. Our garden and the applicants sit alongside other gardens that are divided by simple 2-bar rural fencing and all sharing a rare pocket of total darkness in the evenings. No cars or vehicles have ever entered this rural setting, but this application proposes to change this with a 4-bedroom house deep into the central garden and a 32-metre driveway and parking along our boundary. This is now the 3rd application on this site. We accepted the side dwelling when it was approved in 2025, and for mutual privacy, we bricked up 5 side windows to the east and moved our living spaces to the rear of the house to benefit from the peace and darkness of the garden. If approved, this latest application will completely change this. Due to the gradient, our home sits above the garden, within feet of the proposed driveway. We will see, hear and feel every vehicle, their headlights, fumes and movement cutting through the dark open space. Light does not stop at a red line on a plan, and in fact it can travel up to 150 metres. The applicant relies heavily on the word subterranean, but the planning harm is not underground, it is above ground. The 4-metre entrance pavilion, headlights, lighting, fencing, sewage plant, loss of openness and daily residential activity. No lighting assessment has been carried out by the applicant. The only lighting evidence before you is the independent BRE review we commissioned, which concludes there is a credible risk of obtrusive light impacts on residents and wildlife. The mitigation offered is a fence and planting, yet none of the plans confirm the driveway width. From the scale plans and our own laser measurements, the space alongside our home is insufficient, around 2.4 metres for the driveway and 1 metre for the fence and planting, all hard against our boundary. That is not workable mitigation. It also places the driveway directly over the root zone of our 80-foot mature ash tree on the boundary, a concern serious enough for the council's own tree officer to object. A condition cannot create physical space where there is none. Finally, we ask that you don't count the benefit of new housing twice. 1 dwelling already has permission and can be built whatever you decide today, and your own report accepts this at paragraph 12.63. This is not a scheme that needs tidying up. It is unacceptable in principle. It has generated over 90 objections and will have such a huge
Can you finish in 1 sentence, please?
And will have such a huge impact on our amenity, that of our neighbours, and all manner of wildlife. And I ask again that you please refuse this application.
Yeah, I didn't give you 30 seconds because I was confused. You were reading something totally different what I had in front of me.
It's the same information, it's just...
Yeah, okay, fine. It's just that if anybody else is going to read out a statement, can they please read out the statement that actually they submitted to the council, please? Thank you. So if you'd like to take your seat, please. That's why I was slightly confused, because I was trying to find it. Right, I'd like to call Amanda Buddybent, please. Oh, Bewbent, okay, thank you very much then. Sorry about that, I didn't mean to butcher your surname. Please take your water. And hopefully I might be able to follow it on this one. Thank you. Right, again, once you press the right-hand button, the little red light should come up, and in 3 minutes will come on the screen. And hopefully this time, I'm trying to find out where I was. At 30 seconds, I'll say you got 30 seconds. Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee. The council has faced this exact issue on our street before. At 27 Hurst Road, a back garden development was refused because it was distinctly out of keeping with the immediate surroundings. This current application conflicts with policy DP26 and the NPPF for those exact same reasons, failing to respect the local character and setting. The case officer's own description of this part of Hurst Road is key. Paragraph 9.4 of the report explicitly highlights our large detached dwellings set within spacious plots where notable gaps between buildings with trees and vegetation contribute positively to this rural location. This application does not protect that character. It completely extinguishes it. Behind these houses, the long gardens form a continuous, tranquil, green environment where we regularly see deer grazing. No dwelling on this entire stretch of Hurst Road stands beyond the established building line. This one would, placing a full residential household right in what is today a quiet, natural garden space. The officer's justification for recommending approval rests almost entirely on the building being subterranean and barely visible. But subterranean does not mean harmless. Our local gap and countryside policies do not exist simply to protect views. They exist to prevent the urbanisation of open land. Hiding a building downstairs doesn't change what happens upstairs. It is still a full-sized, 4-bedroom home with all the noise, traffic and lights that come with it. Look at the plot layout. The report states that number 42 has the capacity for subdivision. But the reality is that an Edwardian house with a 100-metre garden will be left with just 18 metres, less than a sixth of its original plot. The officer explicitly concedes this is smaller than the neighbouring gardens. This is textbook overdevelopment via incremental creep. In just 2 years, this single plot has gone from one house to an approved side dwelling and now a third house in the back garden. Each application has built on the last. This is how a rural edge is lost. Not all at once, but plot by plot. We understand the council faces intense pressure to meet housing targets and relies on windfall delivery. But this is the wrong kind of windfall development in the wrong place.
30 seconds.
The report openly concedes this site is in the countryside, inside the local gap, fails policy DP6 and meets absolutely no special justification under policy DP15. You have drawn a firm line against backland development on Hurst Road before. Please, draw it again this afternoon and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now would like to call Joseph Pearson, please, who's in support of this application. And again, could you come to that end chair, press the right-hand button, and again, 30 seconds will appear on the screen. Not 30 seconds, sorry, 3 minutes. But I will say something at 30 seconds to go.
Good afternoon, councillors. I'm speaking in support of the application. I'm from Lewis & Co Planning. We're the agents on this application. And thanks to your officers for their work on this, and the committee report, I think, is very thorough and addresses most of the material considerations in good depth. Officers recommend approval, having tested the scheme against the development plan and the NPPF. They've assessed that the tilted balance applies to this application and that there are no significant or demonstrable impacts that prevent you from granting planning permission, which is in accordance with paragraph 11 of the NPPF. Despite being located outside the built-up area in policy terms, this site is genuinely sustainable. It's within easy walking distance of both the centre of Hurstpit Point and the centre of Hassocks, as well as Hassocks Railway Station. The proposals closely mirror the approved planning consent as you've seen, with the exception that the pool house has instead been reconfigured to create an innovative, contemporary new home, which we think has been achieved very successfully. The existing residential plot at 42 Hurst Road is both wider and deeper than many of its neighbours. It's 4,311 square metres in size. Most plots on Hurst Road are around a quarter of that size. And it's large enough to accommodate these 3 family homes without impacting the grain or character of the area. The entire living accommodation would be part subterranean. It makes use of the falling land levels to bring light into the living space on 3 sides, and the actual impacts on the neighbours are significantly decreased by this design compared to any conventional backland development, with scale and massing kept to an absolute minimum, windows set down below the adjoining ground level. However, we have listened to the concerns raised during the consultation, particularly about cars accessing the property to the rear, and we've made amendments to the plans to introduce the new boundary treatment consisting of closed panel fencing and a hedgerow to prevent light spill and respond to these comments. I note in the update report this is referenced as new information. This was submitted as amendments on the 28th of April and is referenced in your committee report. The conditions suggested by your officers require these elements to be implemented and maintained in perpetuity, and provide sensible further measures such as a construction management plan, limiting hours of works and securing details of external lighting. For these reasons, we feel like the proposals are well conceived and avoid any significant or material impacts on neighbours. The development provides clear benefits, including high quality new homes in a sustainable location, and can be improved
30
in line
seconds.
with your officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Fine, thank you. 2.5 minutes, excellent. Right, now can I call Colin Brace, please, who's the applicant for this? Likewise, if you come to that chair, press the right-hand button, and you have 3 minutes to deliver your speech, please.
Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Colin Brace. I've lived in Hassocks for 27 years, just 5 minutes from this site. Both my sons were educated locally, and I now serve as a governor on Downlands Community School Board. I mention this simply because Hassocks is my home, and I care deeply about the quality of anything I build here. I appreciate that the application has generated strong local feeling, and I genuinely respect those who have taken time to make representations. However, I ask members to determine the application on the planning evidence before you and the professional assessment contained within your officer's report. Your officers have carefully assessed every aspect of this proposal, including its impact on neighbouring amenity, highways, drainage, ecology, tree design and landscape. Where further technical detail has been requested, appropriate planning conditions have been recommended. Having completed that assessment, your officers recommend that the planning permission should be granted. There is one point I would like to clarify because I believe it has been misunderstood. The proposal does not create a new driveway alongside the house. An established access already exists between the existing brick piers and wrought iron gates, and the proposal simply extends that access further into the site to serve the new dwelling. Throughout this application, we have listened and responded. The entrance pavilion has been reduced in scale, landscaping has been strengthened, screening improved, and the dwelling designed to sit largely below the existing ground level beneath a planted roof so that it integrates into the landscape rather than dominating it. One issue raised by objectors is that the proposal differs from the previously approved indoor pool building. That is true. However, the previous permission required excavation not only for the building itself, but for the substantial swimming pool. This proposal removes the need for that major excavation, resulting in less spoil leaving the site, fewer heavy vehicle movements, and a shorter, less disruptive construction programme for neighbouring residents. Finally, I would ask members to look at the overall planning outcome. This proposal delivers an additional high-quality family home, makes effective use of a large residential plot, and does so in a form that your professional officers conclude does not give rise to unacceptable planning harm. I therefore respectfully ask that you support your officers' recommendation and grant planning permission. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Some interesting comments were made in the speeches, so I'm just going to ask Mr Owens to to his thoughts and clarifications on the planning merits, please.
Chair, thank you. Through you, Chair. I don't want to wish to make any comments on the planning merits of the speeches, but I would just draw members' attention to a couple points. Mr Brace's comments on his personal circumstances, I'd ask members not to take that into consideration. It's not material to the planning application before you or your decision today. And is it Miss Budabent? Comments in relation to the incremental approach, which suggests a linking of the previous applications to this in terms of an actual approach to this application being submitted to the council. I'd also ask that members don't consider that as material in the decision being made today. Otherwise, I've got nothing further to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Before I open it up to the committee, well, actually, I'm going to open up the committee, but I'm going to ask my Vice Chairman to kick off any discussions that need to be. Oh, sorry, yes, if you'd like to go back to your seat. Thank you. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to clarify completely, we're talking about one dwelling as an increment with this application, just one dwelling, not two dwellings for the council's count. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Joe's going to answer that one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Whilst planning permission has been granted for one dwelling on the site, this application is seeking a net increase of 2. We have to disregard the 2024 permission because that has not been carried out.
So we're looking at 2.
Yes, this is a standalone application for 2.
Okay, thank you. I've got no problem with the layout nor the design in principle. But if we could have that isometric drawing up again, please. I've got one concern about this development, which I think, this one here. If we look at the back of the new dwelling, which is on the side of the existing house, there is a terrace at first floor level. That terrace needs to have, in my view, significant more screening for the neighbour at 44. It's at high level and will overlook their property significantly, but I suggest that that could probably be conditioned if you think it's necessary. The back building concept has always produced some controversy, but I think the officer in this case has got the argument about right. But in my view, the tilted valance conclusion is marginal, and marginal it may be. I've asked myself, what would we have approved if this had been a 5-year land supply in place? I don't know the answer to that. I would probably consider that we would not have approved it. But under the current situation, where we are not operating under those rules, then, from my point of view, a marginal tilted balance is a balance which we must concede to. And therefore, I will be voting accordingly for the officer's decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask, I'm just going to ask Mr Owens just to clarify that, because I think members will understand the tilted balance, but perhaps members of the public who are watching and in the chamber may not understand the tilted balance.
So I'll seek to answer that, Chair, and if I have any difficulty, I'm sure my colleagues will support me in this. So as we do not have a 5-year land supply, there is a presumption in favour of development, and technically we call it paragraph 11D, 1 and 2. As there's no significant environmental or other aspects that would prevent determination of this application positively, we move into paragraph 11D2, which then weighs up the harms with the scheme with the benefits of the scheme. So the officers have then, or the officer has looked at all the benefits of the scheme and assessed them against the harms of the scheme, and in that balancing exercise has come to a conclusion, hence the reference tilted balance.
Thank you. Councillor Henwood.
I have some questions.
Yes, please go ahead.
Could we go back to the picture of the site I'm very confused about, not necessarily that one.
Which one do you want?
I keep going. No, I want the outline of these two buildings. I'm very confused about how in the back, there seem to be two structures. Not that
Oh, you
one,
want the 3D version?
probably.
That one?
Well, even there's two structures. There's that, and then there's something adjacent to it, to the left.
Oh, it's the pagoda for the cars to go under.
What is the structure to the left? What is that?
Steps.
Steps into the pool.
Steps into, so,
Back into the building.
Yes.
So it is.
okay, so it's still rather confusing for myself, but perhaps could I have explicit the measurements for the pool house that was granted? Could I have the measurements of that, please, that was approved? Because I noticed in the officer's comment, they say the footprint is roughly, so I would like to know exactly how rough, how much bigger is the footprint proposed for the garden house?
What, the underground bit or the steps going down?
Well, the whole thing. I mean, you know, it's a whole structure, isn't it?
We can't give you the exact dimensions, but roughly means pretty much the same.
Yeah, well, I would question that, actually, Chairman. I don't think that's good enough myself. I would like to be explicit measurements. Another particular measurement I'd like to know is the track which is proposed. I would like to know the proposed width of the track. Okay,
We're just trying to get it for you.
I measured it as approximately 2.8 metres.
2.8 metres, approximately.
2.8
8
meters. And I would like also to know the edge of the track, the distance it would be from the adjacent house.
Is there any other questions?
Is there any other questions you wish to ask? Because Joe's trying to find it.
Well, I suppose the length of the track, besides the width, but how long is that track going to be?
The length is actually in the report.
Okay,
I will endeavour to find the length of the track if you've got it in
Thank you.
front of you as well.
Distance of the track from the red line boundary with 44 is approximately 0.8 metres from my scaling on the computer.
0.8 of a metre. 0.8, was it?
0.8
0.8,
of a meter, is that the distance between the track and the adjacent house?
the fence,
The fence,
yeah.
point
Trying to get the length.
80 centimeters.
Yeah.
Thank you. 80 centimetres. Another question,
You want the length now, don't you?
I did want the length.
That's not there, 23 or 30, is it? Not that one, is it?
So the length of the access track from the brick piers near the rear of the existing house. So from the brick piers to the very end point to where the plant and stair building is, that's 32 metres.
32 metres.
32 metres, thank you, thank you. One last question, Chairman. Has there been any update from the tree officer about her concerns to do with the ash tree that might be?
It's one of those weighing up the advantages and non-advantages. I think there is a holding objection from the tree officer, and so the officer had to weigh up, as we all do in every application,
Okay.
benefits, disbenefits, and from there.
Okay, so just to point out that DP 35 actually supports retention of trees, but just to add that. Thank you, Chairman.
Tree's not coming down, though.
But
It
but
could
it
do.
could be vulnerable, and that's what we need to protect, is vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay.
I will come back later.
Councillor Cherry.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to pick up actually on an item that Councillor Henwood had brought up regarding the proposed footprint, which it states on the officer's report 12.35 that the new dwelling to be built on site of the pool building is roughly the same footprint. Now, I spent some considerable time going through the portal, reading all the letters, and I came upon on page 5 of the portal some correspondence from BRE, which was dated the 24th of November 25, which states that the garden house located at the rear of the proposed site has approximately doubled in length compared to the pool house included in the formally approved scheme DM 241748. It recognises that the height of this newly proposed residence is the same as the pool house, but the length of it is double. Now, I'd want some clarification on that because that is quite significant, please.
Thank you. So amended drawings were provided during the course of the application in relation to the plant room house, which were the plant room building, which is above the ground, reducing the size of that and then providing the carport. But when I was looking at this application, the differences between the actual subterranean section of the previously approved pool building and that which is before members now, it has slightly increased in length, in depth, underground only. It's not doubling the length and size of it at all. Otherwise, we would have made that clear in our reports.
You can understand my concern of reading that.
But like I said, the plans have been amended, and that is made clear in the report as well.
Okay, thank you for now.
Okay. Do you wish to come back? You did intimate that you wanted to come back. Does anybody? Nobody else wants to speak?
Chairman, if nobody else wants to say, I actually think when we talk about balance, that the detrimental effect of this development far outweighs any approval for this development. If
On
we
what?
look at,
On what,
okay,
please?
we look at DP4, DP6, DP15, DP12, DP26, when it talks about does not harm conflict with other people, amenities. In fact, the amenities of the existing house, if their garden is reduced from what it states down to 35 meters. That's a detrimental effect on the amenity of the house with this number 42. DP 37, which is about protection of trees. I think if we weigh up all of those detrimental effects of this proposal, if you're talking about balance, we got one habitation, although this is for two, but it's basically the one house has already been approved. So we got a balance of one house, and we got about all the conflicts that exist on these DPs, DP 26. I've listed them all, Chairman. Countryside development, impact on the countryside. That is my statement, Chairman. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Chairman. So I was just going to clarify on a number of points. Can I just go back to what Councillor Hitchcock
Yeah.
raised earlier on?
Yes, please.
So that I don't miss that
Don't miss
one.
them out, no.
So Councillor Hitchcock had raised concerns in relation to, at the ground floor level, didn't he, for the new house sitting aside 42 Hurst Road in relation to here and landscaping. So this would be a patio area level with what number 42 Hurst Road has, and then the land slopes down significantly to create this lower ground area. There is a hard and soft landscaping condition proposed under condition 8 in Appendix A, and so we could control landscaping through that if you were satisfied with that. And then points about trees. I agree with you, Chairman, about the ash tree on the neighbouring land is to be retained. There was a tree report addendum which was provided. The impact would be to the root protection area only, to the tree on the driveway, which the driveway could then be constructed through a no-dig solution and a suitable cellular surface over the roots. Condition 7, set out in Appendix A, requires details of the tree protection measures to protect this tree, so we can condition and control that as well. In terms of the concerns that Councillor Henwood raised, I hear what she is saying. Obviously, the principle we cover in the report over the impact on DP 15 and DP 12, and obviously that is the tilted balance and having no 5-year housing land supply. Concerns were raised in respect of DP 26 and the amenities of the neighbour at 44. The test in DP 26 is significant harm to amenities, and officers do not consider that there is significant harm that would be caused for the reasons set out in the report. And in terms of the reduction in the garden to the existing property 42 Hurst Road, that reduction has already been accepted by the previous approval. And so I think it would be very difficult to justify a refusal in relation to that. And like I'd said earlier about the trees, the condition 7 would control trees as well to make sure that they are not harmed. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr Owens, please.
I think just to respond to Councillor Henwood, I think Councillor Henwood, you're quite clear in identifying a number of policies which this application does not conform with. And within section 13 of the application, it clearly sets out in officers' minds those policies which the application conforms with and those which it does not. And it also then comes to a view that when you read the plan as a whole, the application does not conform with the development plan. So again, you're quite right. In terms of the next step in the process, and I already made mention of the tilted balance and approach through the NPPF, I would draw your attention to paragraph 13.6, which really talks about how you go through the process of assessing impact against the development plan through the NPPF in paragraph 11. So you have to assess the application as a whole against the plan as a whole. but the test is would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. And then the officers then go through, or the officer then goes through the rest of section 13, identifying those benefits against the harms, and they come to the conclusion that in this case, the benefits do outweigh the harms and permission should be granted. So that's the process that's been gone through, but you're quite right in your point that the application as a whole does not conform with the development plan.
Thank you, Eric. Councillor Cherry.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Another aspect of this development, which is troubling me somewhat, is the fact that this the environment here we're looking at, it's not an urban environment. It's an environment which is countryside, basically. And one of the most important things about a countryside development, and something that hasn't been brought up, is the question of light pollution caused by this development. There will be vehicle headlights going up and down this 32-metre access road. If it's a four-bedroomed house, there's probably going to be more than 2 cars, probably. So we have that. We also have got the potential of the outdoor lighting installation that will be there within the building. And also, that's outdoor lighting. And then, although the development is subterranean, there will still be indoor, what you call light spill through the glazing onto the garden. And currently, at the moment, this garden at night is dark, which is a very important consideration for wildlife. Don't underestimate the damage that light pollution causes to nocturnal animals. So I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy about it, and I'm surprised that nobody else is considering this important aspect. Thank you, Chairman.
Valid points. However, and there's always a however, the pool house had planning permission for it. And the plant room had planning permission. And though it hasn't been built, it would have had what you've just suggested, light pollution from the pool house.
May I come back on that,
Yes, you can.
Chairman? If it was a pool house, I can't see that there would be a lot of toing and froing with vehicles.
That's
And
true.
we're talking about, vehicles with today's horrendous LED lighting, blue light, which is extremely, difficult. So the pool house, maybe I wouldn't have had a problem with, but this is a different ballgame. We're talking about a 4-bedroomed house, and with everything that comes with that.
It's very true. However, as Mr. Owens is just, your light's still on, the tilted balance does come into this. And as much as we all hate the tilted balance, and we all do hate the tilted balance, because we get stuff that we don't particularly want, but the tilted balance, unfortunately, means you've got to go with applications you may not like to happen, as my Vice Chairman said. If we had a 5-year land supply, we might have had a different recommendation, but we haven't got a 5-year land supply, so therefore the tilted balance, Rule 11, does come into the effect. And it's disappointing, I know, but unfortunately we've all sat on this committee long enough to know that we don't get applications that we particularly like all the time. And you could say this one falls into that category with the tilted balance. Is this a new point, Councillor Henwood?
No,
At least you're honest.
it's yet again, if I look at the scales, it's weighing up basically one habitation. Chairman, I can understand in the past when it was like 4 or 5 as flats, and yes, but one habitation balanced against particularly the detrimental effect of lights, noise, pollution. Sorry,
again, I can concur, but it has been proven that, one, towards our housing land supply, it brings us slightly nearer to a 5-year land supply than if we didn't have it. And it's a tilted. You've come down on the one side, the officers, in their professional opinion, have come down on a different one. And it's down to us to whether we agree with the officers or we agree with yourself. Councillor Kennedy, you haven't spoken yet.
I haven't, no.
You haven't?
But it's, I think
good one.
it's a very interesting but a very difficult case. I mean, basically we're faced with an application for 2 dwellings.
Yeah.
We're not able to separate them out. It's either a pass or fail for both. And I think that's important to be clear. I appreciate Councillor Hitchcock's comments about the house at the roadside, if I can call it that, and the terrace and the fact that it could be overlooking the next door neighbour at number 44. I don't really like it, but across the whole of the district, on a number of occasions, we have granted permission for development in large back gardens, not necessarily always in the countryside. And so this is slightly different in the fact that it is in the countryside. But a lot of people have had driveways 32 metres or more going past their houses to allow access to a large rear garden where a property, or indeed properties, have been built. And we have granted permission in those circumstances. I don't think we grant permission if it was a house that was being built there that was not partly underground. Subterranean sounds a bit troglodyte-ish and caveman type, but we're faced with a situation where I don't think we can significantly demonstrate sufficient harm to outweigh the benefits, I feel. And it's very reluctantly that I come to that conclusion, particularly when you add in the factor of the tilted balance. We are where we are. And whilst I don't like it, I think my balance will fall with granting.
Okay. Wise words indeed. I need a proposer and a seconder to, sorry, Joe wants to come back, sorry.
Sorry, thank you. I just wanted to come back on the point raised about the lighting, if I may, please, just before, just to make it clear. The council's ecologist consultant has raised no objection to subject to conditions, and there's condition 17 which seeks to control the external lighting, requiring details to be provided upon completion of the slab level. And like you said as well, Chairman, the previously approved pool building that had roof lights, light wells, and would have had external, lights facing from the use of it just directly into the rear garden. But we consider condition 17 would control the harm on lights. Thank you.
Yeah, because particularly that last part will be maintained. Therefore, thereafter maintained. So can I have a proposer for the officer's recommendation, please? Councillor Hitchcock. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Avery. Okay, we have a proposer and a seconder. So if you're in support of the officer's recommendation, green. If you support it, red. If you don't, yellow if you're going to abstain. Is that everybody? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Somebody's not voted. Unless I can't add up. It did, right. Okay. 6 in support, 2 against, and 3 abstentions. That has been approved. Thank you.
Yep. Could I just make a point that I think we've approved it, fine, but the conditions are really important in this case, and it's important that they are monitored and enforced if necessary.
Totally agree, 100%.
I think that's really important that the officers and all of us make a note of that and approve that.
Yeah. Can I make a plea? Because you asked some excellent questions. But if you do have technical questions where you need measurements and widths and lengths and stuff like that, could you send into the officers prior to the meeting, because it put the officer in a bit of a position. She can't answer the questions of the members. So if you do have technical questions of that, could we send them in future, please? Because I do think that is important. Thank you very much. Right, Joe, you can go home now. And take your blistered foot with you. Just got to swap over officers into this position here before we go to the next one. Thank you. God, I thought I went through. Item 7 on the agenda, and that is DM 25/2223, and this one's yours, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Before I get into the presentation, I'll just quickly run through the update sheet. I won't read it all out because members have had a chance to read that and digest it. But just a summary, we've received, as you see there, one further additional letter of support. Just by way of a verbal update, about 15 minutes before the meeting and after this was prepared, we also received a further letter of objection that didn't raise any new issues that aren't already summarised in the report. You'll see that we've received a comment from the agents acting for the applicants regarding paragraphs 7.4 and 9.8 of the officer's report. And essentially there's a difference of opinion between the applicants and the council regarding the previous use of permitted development rights. I think the applicants wanted that noted, that difference of opinion, but it's not material to the planning merits of what's before the committee today. Para 2.12, the second sentence in that just needs to be amended. There's a double negative in the report that shouldn't be there, so it's the wording on the update sheet. And there's a slight change to para 12.106 regarding a minor pinch point where the proposed access road goes by the ancient woodland buffer. So that's an amendment to that paragraph, and that feeds into the proposed amended wording to condition 10, and I can point out where that is as I go through the presentation. And the final thing, you'll see that in the report, the list of drawings that have been considered and comprise the application aren't listed in the report, so they're on the update sheet. So that's that. So to go through the application, planning application seeks permission for works to and a change of use of land to create an event area for use associated with a single 3-day event and car parking for 683 vehicles for use in association with this event, in addition to its use for the wider church events and for use by the adjacent sports clubs on a restricted basis. So plan on the screen now. On the left is the existing site, and on the right it's the proposed location plan. So I'm sure members are familiar, and we visited the site earlier in the week. So the site of the application's outlined in red here is St Hill Manor main building here on the south of St Hill Road. To the northeast of the site, you've got the East Grinstead Rugby Club, and to the north you've got the East Grinstead Sports Club. The Manor House is a Grade 2 listed building. There's other buildings within the complex. This building's known as the Castle. We saw that on the site. The existing access of St Hill Road is located here, and then the land falls away down to the main buildings. There's also an access point here that's proposed to be upgraded as part of this planning application. The whole site is within the countryside as defined in the district plan. It's also within the High Weald National Landscape, formerly known as the Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty. And the application covers approximately 5.07 hectares and is made up of 2 fields. So you've got During Field to the north here, and Hobbs Field to the south. So, as I said, the application seeks permission for works to and a change of use of the land to facilitate car parking for up to 683 vehicles and the use of this events space here. So it's proposed that a plastic cellular paving system is set out in the report. CellPave is the name. It's be laid on the ground following the stripping of the top surface, and then that's backfilled and sown with grass. The site will be served by a new vehicular access point here, and the existing access point will also remain. Just before I go further, this is just an extract from the council's mapping system that shows some of the constraints around the site and the public rights of way. So that's the Manor House, the Grade 2 listed building. That's the castle that I referred to. So During Field up here, Hobbs Field here. The darker areas, darker cross-hatching is ancient woodland with the 15-metre buffer around, and these are public rights of way, the purple and the green. So there's no public rights of way that run through the site. And the reference in the update sheet to that slight encroachment onto part of the buffer is in this area here, just for members' awareness. So this is the proposed site plan. So as I say, you've got the cell paving on the During Field to the north here. Upgraded access, and we saw an existing track when we were on site, so that would be upgraded. Visibility displays improved in both directions at this point, and then that access track would come round the site and then to the back here, and again the southern field would have that paving CellPave system to facilitate the marquee structure that's referred to in the report. So just in a bit more detail, that's the temporary car park plan During Field, and you'll see in a subsequent plan how that's divided up into different zones and the times that those particular spaces can be used. But this is the plan in a bit more detail. So that's the CellPave across the site, new access or graded access along the northern boundary, and then also internally access through there that would then feed through into the existing access point here that goes. That's a tarmac access at this point, and then goes down to the the castle and the manor house. In terms of the event field site, this is again, it's the same paving system that would be used, and that's there to facilitate the marquee as set out in the report. The annual event that this is designed to facilitate only lasts for 3 days, but the application seeks consent for a maximum period of up to 84 days per year for the marquee structure, to allow for sufficient time to set up and take down that marquee. And you'll see in the committee report the dimensions of it. Is a large structure when it's erected, so it does take a lot of setting up and setting down. In terms of the field itself, apart from this, the cell pave system with the grass growing through it, there would be a concrete ring beam system, but that's underground, and that's just there to, in effect, anchor the marquee when it's up. So in terms of actual above ground buildings and structures, the only ones that are proposed are in this far corner of the field. So that's a washroom. You'll see on the slides, it's a small single-storey building, and then an enclosure for generator here. So that's just a fenced enclosure right in the corner. But those are the only above ground structures for the application. This is just a view of during field. Don't know how clear you can see, but in effect, when cars would be parked on here, they would be parked in rows. But as I say, it would be this cell pave system. So from a distance, when there's no cars on that field, it will appear pretty much as it does now, as a grass field. So there won't be any significant impact on the landscape. And again, Hobbs Field, can make out hopefully the grey outline here of where the marquee structure would be when that is erected. And that's the building in the corner, and that's the enclosure for the plant room. So just some elevations, as I say, of the building for that washroom. So small structure, single story, with a green roof. The car park, you'll see that set out in detail in the report, but you've got area A here at the top end. That's referred to use up to 30 days in any calendar year. That's 113 spaces there. Then area A and B, that can be used up to 13 days in any calendar year with up to 313 spaces. And then it is maximum use A, B and C, that's the full 683 spaces, but that would be up to 7 days in any calendar year. So that's all detailed in the report in terms of the usage. Just some photos from the applicant's design and access statement. So that's the existing main entrance into the site, and you can see the application site, the top field. In the background, a couple of views from Saint Hill Road. So that's the adjacent sports club, and then the application site on the other side there. And just some aerial photos of what happens at the moment in terms of the existing, or the trackway, temporary trackway that has to go down to allow for car parking on during field. So that goes down and then cars park. And you can see, I think, the marquee in the background there. So if I go back to the main site plan. So I won't go through all the issues in any great detail because it's quite a lengthy report. I'm sure members have gone through that, but just to flag up the main points. Legal framework that the application is determined under that section set out in section 11 of the report. And as members know, you determine applications in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. So the development plan for this part of Mid Sussex is the district plan, East Grinstead neighbourhood plan and the site allocations, DPD. Other relevant legislation and material considerations are all listed in that section of the report. So in terms of the assessment, and I'll just flag up the highlights here. In terms of the principle, that's dealt with at para 12.1 onwards of the report. So the site is in the countryside, so the starting point is policy DP12 in the district plan. And you'll see development within the countryside is permissible where it maintains or enhances, where possible, the quality of the rural landscape, and is either for purposes of agriculture or supported by another policy in the district plan or the development plan. So whilst this application is clearly not related to agriculture, the intended use in your office's view does support extended cultural community activities associated to the permitted religious use of St Hill Manor, which lies immediately adjacent to the site. And such expansion is capable of being supported in principle by policy DP25, but that's all set out in the committee report. So in terms of impact on the high-wheeled national landscape, that's dealt with on para 12.9 onwards of the report. So the relevant policies in the development plan, other material considerations of the MPPF and the high-wheeled management plan, they're all set out there. You'll see that a key issue that officers have dealt with and assessed is whether this is a major development for the purposes of the NPPF, because that affects how the application is assessed. And you'll see for the reasons that are in paras 12.19 to 12.20, your planning officers don't consider this to be a major development for the purposes of the NPPF, and therefore paragraph 190 of the NPPF doesn't apply, but that's set out in detail. In terms of the actual impacts to the national landscape, for the reasons set out in this section of the report, planning officers consider that there would be some harm, albeit our view is that's negligible to the landscape. But because there is that negligible harm, there is still a conflict with the relevant development plan policies in relation to that issue. But we do think that the application is in accordance with the high-wheeled management plan when you read that as a whole, again for the reasons set out in the report. So that's the assessment and your view of your officers on that point. In terms of access and transport, that's dealt with in paras 12.4.4 onwards of the report. As I mentioned to begin with, you'll have 2 access points with this one upgraded and visibility displays improved there. You'll see that the local highway authority has no objections to the report, and have no concerns about the application in terms of highway safety or the impacts on the capacity of the road network. And I'm sure, as members know, that the test in the MPPF of a severe impact is a high bar, and clearly the views of the highway authority should be given significant weight as they're the statutory body responsible for the road network in the district. You'll see that travel plan would be secured in the section 106 agreement, and the draft travel plan we've got identifies that for the existing events held on the field, park and ride strategies used to collect visitors from the station, but the details of that would be in the travel plan. Flood risk and drainage, that's para 12.5.7 of the report onwards. In a nutshell, surface water is proposed to be attenuated on site and then discharged to a watercourse, existing watercourse to the west. foul water would use the existing package treatment plant within the church. The lead local flood authority have no objection to the application, subject to conditions regarding points of detail, and the planning officers have no reason to disagree with their assessment of that issue. In terms of residential amenities, you'll see that's in para 1267 onwards of the report. There's no objection from the council's environmental health officer, subject to the conditions in the committee report. Permanent lighting was originally proposed at the top end of the site here, but that's been removed from the site, from the application, sorry. Heritage impacts, that's dealt with para 1274 onwards of the report. I'm sure members know, and it's in the report. When considering whether to grant a planning permission, we have to give special regard to the desirability of preserving the building, listed building in its setting, as that's in the legislation, and that's all in the report. So, as we saw in the one of the other slides, that's the listed building there, and for the reasons that are set out in the report, we agree with the conservation officer in terms of there would be some limited harm to the setting of that listed building that falls within our view the less than substantial category, and that then engages the balance of harms against the benefits that you have to do under the MPPF, and that's all set out in the report. Trees and ancient woodland, that's dealt with on page 100 of the report. There will be a requirement for the removal of some trees on the site, 6 category C trees and 5 category B, some at the to facilitate the improved visibility displays there, some by the barn that was to be demolished that we saw on the site visit, but that can be more than made up for by replacement planting in the extensive grounds at the site. You'll see in terms of ecology, that's para 12109 onwards of the report. There's no objection from the council's ecological advisor to the application, and you'll see that there's a significant gain proposed in terms of biodiversity net gain, well above the statutory 10% that the applicants have to provide. So that's all set out in the report. So in terms of the overall balance and conclusion, that's in section 13. So you'll see that there's conflict with some elements of the development plan in officers' view and compliance with other policies in the development plan. For the reasons that are set out in that report, we think that there is a conflict with the development plan when read as a whole, but as members know, that's not the end point. You have to also look at the other material considerations to consider if the application should be decided otherwise than in accordance with the plan. You'll see paragraph 13, 18 in the report. We've gone through the benefits, neutral impacts, and the harms from the development, the weight that we've given to them as officers to come to that overall balance. And you'll see that set out in the final paragraphs in 1321. We do think that in this case there are other material consideration that provide sufficient grounds on the specifics of this case to support the proposed development. So I think that's probably all I need to say in terms of introducing it, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. King. I do have 4 speakers. Unfortunately, the first speaker, an Alexandra Barnes-Ross, who was due to speak against, is not attending. And for the degrees of fairness, I've asked our legal officer to read out his statements because we wouldn't want to disadvantage anybody. Solomon.
This application seeks to make permanent alterations to over 5 hectares of unspoiled protected rural countryside. Although the proposal seeks to embed a plastic geocell grid into the ground, giving the car park area the appearance of a field for the majority of the year, planning policy states the protection of national landscape goes beyond purely visual impact. This will result in a fundamental change to the use of the land, and the Council's own report acknowledges the harm and damage this will do to the total area and nearby heritage buildings. However, perhaps more concerning are the number of inaccuracies and falsehoods presented by the applicant and seemingly endorsed by officers in their report. At a premises licensing review hearing just a few months ago, Scientology lawyers admitted in this very chamber that the IAS event, which this application seeks to provide infrastructure for, is not religious in nature and does not involve any acts of worship. It is a fundraising, money-making event for an overseas entity that extracts huge amounts of wealth from the local economy. The applicants and the officers' agreement that the Saint Hill has religious significance for Scientologists and that this should be given extra weight in terms of demonstrating a public benefit are not only misleading, but demonstrably false. The IAS event, as per the applicant's legal representatives and indeed the report submitted as part of their application, is not open to the public apart from one day a year, and although there are reassurances the car park could be used by the local sports club, there is no evidence to suggest such an agreement would last indefinitely. Similarly, the applicant and indeed the officer's report suggests that due to the so-called religious significance of the site, no alternative venues have been deemed appropriate for this event, and yet the applicant's own reports detail how over the years, 25% of these annual IAS events have indeed taken place elsewhere. The church recently secured permission to build a huge events venue at their worldwide headquarters in Florida, where this IAS event will eventually move to, meaning this development will result in permanent alterations to a protected AONB, yet only see temporary use until their new venue opens in the US. Finally, it's important for councillors to note the economic impact assessment is based on figures provided by the applicant themselves and cannot be substantiated. There has been no independent assessment conducted by the council or indeed any verification that the figures provided are accurate. The suggestion this event carries a greater benefit to the UK economy than Eurovision is laughable at best. Although a number of attendees visit from overseas, the majority of them stay in hotels owned by Scientologists, who in turn donate their profits back to the church. There is no mention of the fact that last year Scientology's biggest donor was awarded for donating $360 million. This event creates a closed-loop economy and in fact extracts wealth from the area. Any reasonable person would consider a 5-hectare development to be major, and it simply does not serve the public interest. I therefore urge councillors to reject this proposal.
Thank you, Solomon. I'd now like to call an Austin Waite, please. You heard me say it many times. Could you go to that chair, press the right-hand button, and you get 3 minutes. And after 2.5 minutes, I will say you've got 30 seconds left.
So may I begin by thanking staff, officers and the committee for their report and for hearing my comments against the proposed development of During and Hobbs Fields. Having previously submitted objections, I aim to directly focus on points raised within the report. This proposal is the latest in a string of developments within the Saint Hill property, located within the High Weald National Landscape, some of which were unauthorised, including a coach park, car park and an imitation castle. Given this cumulative impact, it's a highly rational concern that by granting this application, it will only pave the way for further development within an area that should be strictly conserved. Adding over 600 permanent car parking spaces cannot reasonably be seen to conserve nor enhance the area. In fact, the committee report admits that the development would lead to harm, albeit described as negligible, thereby failing to achieve either of the statutory aims. This is reflected in the public response, where the report lists 31 reasons to object compared to just 6 in favour. Importantly, this is a permanent development for a 3-day per year event, a development which will not be used all year round and is at any point at risk of being moved to an arguably more appropriate venue at a moment's notice. This is clear when we have seen that of the previous 38 IAS events since the organisation's formation, at least a quarter have been held elsewhere. The applicant currently has planning permission for a large event space at their international headquarters overseas. Scientology has made clear that all international events will move to this new venue when it is complete. And given this likelihood, I'd argue that a permanent development of this scale for a temporary event is not warranted. The committee report states that it gives significant weight to the economic benefit of the development in the local economy. What needs to be highlighted, though, is how the economic and employment impact assessment is based on unreliable data provided by the applicant that cannot be fully verified. The committee report states that no alternate evidence was provided to the officers on the matter, and interrogating the matter is difficult, and that is indeed true. However, one should consider that any possible benefit to the local economy does not hinge solely on this specific development being granted, but could still be maintained by using an alternate local venue. Hence, the significant weighting given to the economic benefit of this development ought to be brought into question. So in summary, this application will result in the permanent development of over 5 hectares of AONB for the purposes of a 3-day fundraising event, of which only 1 day is open to the public, and we cannot reliably ascertain the economic impact of. What we can be certain of, though, is that this sets a dangerous precedent for further development that is not generally in the public interest, and therefore this should, in my opinion, be rejected.
Thank you. I'd like to call Scott Marshall, who is speaking in support. I won't explain, you've heard me say it so many times. When you're ready.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Planning Committee. I'm here today to speak in support of the application. I am Managing Director of Marshall Regen Limited, an independent economic regeneration consultancy based in Hove. I have a degree in economic development and over 30 years' experience of supporting local authorities and the private sector with the development of economic strategies, plans and impact assessments. I am not a member of the Church of Scientology. In the autumn of 2025, we were commissioned by the Church to undertake an independent economic impact assessment of the IAS event held in October 2025. Our assessment included primary data from an online survey of more than 470 delegates and staff attending the event. We collected data on delegates' country of origin and their spending in local hotels, food and drink establishments, transport, leisure and shopping outlets. The event attracted around 7,000 delegates and staff, with over 47% travelling from overseas. This is significantly higher than the average at other UK events recorded by Visit Britain, which is around 33%. This high level of international attendance contributes to visitor spending not only in East Grinstead, but across Sussex and the wider UK. The event supports local hotels and guest houses, hospitality and restaurant businesses, transport services, as well as other visitor attractions. Our independent impact assessment submitted with the planning application found the event generated a gross impact of 6.9 million directly within East Grinstead, 11.3 million within Sussex, and 21.7 million for the UK economy. The assessment also identified that the event created 287 jobs nationally, including 92 in East Grinstead. In our opinion, the timing and location of the event further enhances its value. The event is held each year in October, outside the main tourist season. It extends the local visitor economy into a quieter period, and the event is the main driver of visits. It results in longer stays in other parts of Sussex and the UK. Our comparative assessment report also shows that delegates attending the event spent £805 more per trip and £149 more per night than the average spent at all UK events. If there is no annual event, very few of these delegates are likely to visit East Grinstead or Mid-Sussex for other reasons. The event also provides direct support to local charitable organisations. £400,000 was donated in 2025. Our independent assessment confirms that the significant contribution, the economic contribution the event brings to the East Grinstead, Sussex and UK economy. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to call Neil Abbott from DMH Stallard, who is speaking in support of this application. Oh, sorry, Nigel. I said Neil, didn't I? I do apologise. Yeah, so you probably have, as have I. Nigel.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. This application has been subject of a detailed and thorough assessment by your officers. I would encourage members to place considerable weight on that professional assessment. This is not a case where technical issues remain unresolved. The local highway authority raises no objection, neither do your specialists in ecology, drainage, flood risk, trees, landscape or environmental protection. The proposal has been carefully scrutinised, and where concerns were identified during the process, the scheme was amended to reduce its impacts. The report is balanced. It does not suggest this proposal is without impact. It accepts there is negligible landscape harm unless there's substantial heritage harm. That is an honest planning assessment. The question before members is therefore not whether there is any impact. Very few developments are entirely without one. Rather, the question is whether, having identified those limited harms, the overall planning balance supports granting planning permission. Your officers have concluded that it does. They conclude that this is not a major development in the High Weald National Landscape. They also conclude that because the marquee is present for only a limited period each year, the fields retain their open character for the overwhelming majority of the year. They conclude that the proposal has no unacceptable impacts on highways, drainage, ecology or neighbouring amenity. They also conclude that their identified harms are outweighed by the public benefits. The planning system requires decisions to be based on that balance and not on any single issue in isolation. The officer's report has identified the relevant planning issues, assessed them carefully and reached a clear professional recommendation. I can also confirm that the Section 106 agreement has recently been submitted to the Council. Mr Marshall has addressed the economic benefits, so I won't repeat those, but they form part of a wider planning balance that your officers have already carefully considered, including significant over-provision of biodiversity net gain both on and off the site. However, after considering all of the evidence, your officers recommend approval because they are satisfied that the benefits outweigh the limited harm that's been identified. We respectfully invite members to accept that recommendation and resolve to grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you. 30 seconds quicker than the others. Well done. Okay, as I did in the previous application, I'm just going to ask Eric to say a few words about the planning merits, please, if you'd like to.
Thank you, Chair. As I did previously, I don't wish to make any comments on the planning merits of the scheme or the points that the speakers have made in terms of planning merits, but I would like to just draw the attention of the committee to a number of points that, in my view, aren't material to the decision you've been asked to make today. So in terms of the first speaker, Mr Alexander Barnes-Ross, comments on the future location of this event, which is subject to this application, are not relevant to the decision you've been asked to make today. Comments in relation to the licensing committee are not relevant to the application you've been asked to determine today. That is a separate process. In relation to Mr Waits, comments made in relation to historic or unauthorised development are not relevant to the determination today. Comments relevant to setting a precedent or encouraging future development would be covered by a future planning application if they're required. Again, not relevant for the decision you've been asked to do today. The comments in relation to the number of responses for and against, it's not the number of responses for and against that are significant in the ask you've been made to do. It is the weight and significance of those individual comments. That's the relevant part. So again, the number of responses for or against are not relevant in your decision making today. And again, the annual event and its future location, again, that is not relevant to the decision you've been asked to do today. Comments made by Mr. Scott Marshall. His personal circumstance, I'd ask you not to consider that relevant today. And comments made in relation to the £400,000 charitable donation is not relevant to the decision you'll be made today. There's no guarantee that would happen again, and it's not linked to this planning application that's before you today. And lastly, comments made by Mr. Nigel Abbott. The submission of a section 106 is not relevant to the decision you've been asked to do today, obviously. Should you approve the application, we will need one, but the fact that one has been submitted is not relevant. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. As is the wont, I normally go to the local members. If you wish to say anything, Mr. Councillor de Bow, as you are the only member we have here today from East Grinstead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You can hear me, can't you?
I can hear you.
I think it's quite interesting that well, let's not say that. The fact is that the determination of this organisation on this particular piece, whilst I've been a councillor and whilst I've lived down in this neck of the woods, coming from being a yokel up north sort of thing, is quite demonstrable. I mean, originally I understand that they wanted to build a big unit at what is called Sand Hill, and they were denied permission, and therefore they found out that you could actually build a castle anywhere you like, so they built a castle. And there's been various things going forward over a period of time where, bearing in mind this is an area of natural beauty which has, it's protected land, and one way or the other they've continued, in my knowledge, to actually find a way to do what they want on it. Now, I have concerns for this because, incidentally, it's on Saint Hill and it's Hobbs Field. Take from that what you wish. But I think that my concern is that once again, I mean, for instance, they're talking about using this for 84 days a year. That's getting on for, you know, well, it's definitely a third and quite a large part of the time that marquee is going to be there. And my concern is that that will eventually become something else. And there's always been something like that that's actually stretched usage within this part of the land to actually do that. So, yeah, I mean, they're entitled to whatever they want to do on their particular territory, but it's the extension of this into this area that has my concern. And also, that lane there is very difficult to get in and out of. It's quite narrow. So they're my concerns, for what it's worth, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Could you switch your microphone on? Thank you. Mr. Owens?
Again, I'd just like to remind members that the ask of you today is to focus on the application that's before you, and any suggestion of what may come next is not material to the decision you've been asked to do today. If further development is proposed on site, then that would be assessed and discussed with the applicant or owner, and if further planning permission was required, that would be considered in due course at the appropriate time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can we just, as we said before at the beginning, can we just concentrate on the planning application we have in front of us, please? Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Chairman. That's exactly what I want to do. Looking at the drawings, it's a strange one because the drawings seem to set hairs running in terms of it being a much more overbearing development than it actually is in practical terms. And just focusing on the impact on the ANLB as it was, or the natural landscape, what we looked at on Tuesday was essentially two open grass fields. They're not arable land, they're not used for any other thing than, generally leisure and so on and so forth. There's sports fields, etc., etc. And it's mostly private areas with people using them for private events. So on the plans, it shows that there's, you know, big dark green areas, dark red and everything. Where in actual fact, what we saw was two grass fields scarred by all the car parking. The event takes place over 3 days, I think it's in October, which is open to the foibles of the British weather, you know, so it could be really boggy and completely flooded on those events. And you can see the scars where the marquees have been on the second field, the non-car parking field. So if this takes place, what will be the difference? Well, the main difference will be that the scarred grass won't be scarred grass anymore because you're not putting roads over it, you're not driving over it. It will be the grass, what's it called, cell pave, and the same with the where the marquees go. So when the marquees and the cars aren't there, and it's only a 3-day event, 7 days I think for full usage of the car parking, it'll return back to a green field again, essentially. Now, putting aside whether the thing's going to last forever or not, that's not part of this discussion today. It's whether what's in front of us is acceptable in visual and planning terms. And my view is that it would be, because I think you'd get rid of the scarring on the grass, you improve the junctions, you improve the flow of cars in and out. Yes, we lose a couple of trees, but they're only grade B and C trees. So you know, overall, I think the balance is in favour of this, and putting aside the economic benefits as not a planning issue, but still a very important issue for East Grinstead. So overall, I think I support this one way and another. So that's not really my vote. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's the fact the car park's going to be put there will stop people parking on the road, which I think is one of the major issues that fills my inbox occasionally, I must admit. I think you've jumped Councillor Kennedy. He was for next.
He's up first.
It's up to you. You can go first.
Okay, thank you. It was a very good opportunity to visit and find out some more about the site on Tuesday and to gather information about it. One question I perhaps should have asked, and I think I know the answer. The proposed site, particularly on Urick Field, that's not going to be marked with identifiable white lines, is it? Work for car parking and so on? No. I mean, it has been used for car parking in the past, for past events. So, I mean, it's just a case of cutting and filling and flattening it and putting these cell pavings in. My second question really is about the cell paving. How permanent is that? How long would it last? If, for example, I know we're talking about the future, but we're making a decision now that might affect the future, how long or how easy would it be for that to be removed, to have it returned to arable land?
Good question.
Yeah, in terms of the finite detail of that, as I understand it, it's a system where the topsoil is stripped, and then this stuff goes on, and then it's backfilled, can be with gravel for heavier vehicles, or soil for grass to grow through. So it's not a system that has very significant engineering works in terms of huge amounts of foundation. So I couldn't give an answer as to how long the system lasts once it's down, whether it has a 30-year lifespan or 40-year. I don't know. But in terms of the system, it is just stripping off and putting it down again.
I think I understand the process, and I just wondered what the lifespan would be of it, and if a farmer came along and rented the field in the future and he wanted to plant wheat or oats or something, would it be possible to do it on that site?
I think you'll have to purchase the land off the church.
Well, that's true, but we heard what might happen in the future.
We do. Yeah. Mr. Owen?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to assist Councillor Kennedy, the report does consider the permanence of the cell pave. And in that consideration, it comes to the view that it isn't permanent. It could be lifted. There's no technical reason why it couldn't be lifted in the future. So the self-pave and the concrete rings could be removed in the future. So again, the report does consider those points and uses it in the impact assessment.
Going to what you said about white lines, for those of us who visit the South of England show ground, we park regularly outside the wild fence, and all the cars park outside it, and there's no white lines. And you don't go when it rains, should we say, because you get stuck in.
No, my concern was that looking at it from above, or indeed the side, it would be pretty horrible to have, I don't know, 800 white lines.
It would be, but it's
parking
not.
Spaces.
It's definitely not. My Vice Chairman, Mike.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with Mr. Councillor Avery. I went to the site visit with these two, and the field itself is already pretty scruffy because of car parking. And I can imagine that if it gets wet while they're trying to get out, it actually causes significant problems and probably doesn't do much for the lane, St Hill Road. This will resolve those sorts of problems, and it will also provide that whole area of the site with a professional drainage system, which should prevent flooding and should prevent any further problems with parking on that site. The car park site, from what I saw, is pretty well screened. From the proposed new access, you can just see an element of it. There is good screening to the lane, and with a professional input there, the whole site will benefit from having a potential one-way system for in-out parking, which uses the existing entry. The marquee site, when we visited it, showed the location of the marquee because it had different vegetation growing in the exact pattern of the marquee. That gave us a good idea of size, and the thing is massive. I walk in and around the surrounding hills on a regular basis, and the first time I saw that marquee from West Hoadley, I thought, God, what's that? Something's landed. But I've got used to it now. This event's been going on for several years, and now, in October, I know there will be a white tent on the horizon. And it doesn't bother me anymore. It doesn't, from my point of view, impact on the horizon anymore. I've got used to it. The usage periods are relatively short. Although there is an overall usage period which is relatively long, the usage period for the individual events are quite short, and for the main event, it is very short. So I don't really have a problem with the usage. What I do agree with Councillor Avery on is that we really do need to nail down the access to this car park for the local sports events, and make sure that there is an agreement in place which allows them to use it when it's not being used by the owners. I think the balance here is the harm against the contribution that this makes to the East Grinstead area. That's my view of the balance, and I think the financial contribution to the local economy cannot be underestimated. And in my view, that it is the major item influencing the tilted balance. I agree with the officer's conclusion and will support this application.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go to the second, Councillor Casella. It's just if you've got papers, you can get up to page 72, and it's paragraph 1.2.112, and it's to do with the BNG. I have never seen anything quite like this. Is what being provided. Yeah. Creation of a pond designed and managed for wildlife, provision of bat boxes, provision of bird nest boxes, creation of areas of species meadow grassland within the site, ideally with wide natural buffer strips along the site boundaries, planted of native species, etc., And this one, which I think is quite extraordinary, I think we all ought to have a bit of this in our own garden, incorporation of deadwood habitat piles within the areas of retained suitable habitat for examples underneath tree canopies. That's for the insects and stuff like that. I mean, it's quite, and can I just ask how much BNG is? 100 and something plus, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's right. It's in the report. Sorry. I think it's in the report in terms of the habitats unit, but yeah, it's well above the mandatory 10%,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the other thing, well, I've got the mic, just in terms of Councillor Hitchcock's query regarding the securing the use of the car parking for the other sports clubs, that would be part of the legal agreement, so that would be secured in there. So that's referenced in recommendation A in terms of what will be going into that legal agreement. So that's the means by which that would be secured.
Excellent. Councillor Casella, you haven't spoken yet.
No, makes a change. I have to agree with Councillors Avery and Hitchcock. At the moment, that is pretty much dead land. And the marquee field couldn't look much worse than it does at the moment. Several of my neighbours over the years have actually done this to their front lawns, so they didn't have to dig them all up and put in the horrible block paving. And in fact, now you wouldn't even know that the stuff was there. The grass just grows out over it. They park their cars on it every night, and it works perfectly. So to me, the event happens anyway. It's going to happen whether this is done or not. So they've already got the licences for it. All they want to do is improve the situation for the event, and to me that makes sense. It will actually probably improve the fields rather than make them worse. So I support it.
Thank you. And for any of those of us who've been to Wakehurst, the Overspill car park has got this in Wakehurst car park. And I have parked on it. I know it works. Councillor Henwood, please tell me you like us or not.
Oh, yeah, washrooms. The only permanent structure will be washrooms. Please, can this committee put in informative so that the applicant would, for the washrooms, would install grey water recycling and on the roof, photovoltaics or a sedum roof? Can we put that in as an informative, Chairman?
It has a green roof, I do know that.
It will have a green roof?
It has a green roof, and I think when Mr. King was speaking about the water recycling through, they do use that. Is that, you did mention some water being recycled through?
I think we can certainly add that as an informative for the applicants to take forward, but yeah, that's the elevations of the proposed washroom, so you can see it has the proposed green roof there, so that's what we would be giving consent for if members obviously approve the application.
Okay. Councillor Cherry.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, a bit of a horticultural question here.
Ooh, blimey.
Once the area has been resurfaced, newly resurfaced, and the grid's put down, how do we get the grass? Will it be seeded with grass? Yeah.
Yeah, so
I'm a
it'd
bit,
be like cubes.
bit worried about the grass.
With dirt, no, not dirt, soil they call it, don't they? Mixed with grass seed and...
Oh, it mixed with the grass seed.
And it just...
Yeah.
And as Councillor Casella said, you know, people do it in their front.
Yeah.
It stops flooding, for starters. And you don't even know, do you? No.
No. It's just that, as Councillor Avery pointed out, I mean, we're looking at two enormous fields, so that's a lot of grass seed. But no, that's good to know.
It's an almost, yeah, you're right. But I mean, when I visited, I mean, I couldn't make the Tuesday meeting up there. I went on my own. I had a personal tour by my two colleagues here alongside me. You can see when they come in that the mess, when it was wet, when the vehicles are driven over it, and that regularizes it, and you know, that bit doesn't grow grass anymore. It's been mangled that much, but if it's going to have this type of surface on it, it'll be just a grass field for all intents and purposes. So, I've heard some positives. I need a proposer and a seconder, please. So can Councillor Every to propose? Second, Councillor Kennedy to second. Can I have the voting screen up, please? Green if you support the officer's recommendation, red if you don't, and yellow if you're against it, abstaining. Okay, I've got them all. That's 8 in favour, 1 against, and 2 in support. Sorry, 2 abstaining, 1 against, 8 in support. Sorry, I do apologise. Long day. That has been passed. Thank you very much for your attendance on that one. Right, now we'll go to item 8, which is questions pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.2. Due notice of which has been given. I have none. Therefore, I close the meeting at 6 o'clock. Please remain in your seats until such time we get told the live feed is off.